Because this is one level of sleeping as we see it in the body and we see it in the higher attributes. Now we're going to go to a talk that the previous Rebbe, a discourse in 1940. This is his first discourse, arriving here in 1940, coming from the war with a wheelchair. He was very broken, weak, and he gave a discourse on Purim. Came 5 days earlier, stayed in Manhattan till they bought the Lubavitch Center in late 40, summer 1940, and actually a few days ago marks 71 years since they bought the binyan. Wow. The 21st of Elul marks the anniversary of 71 years since Lubavitch moved into 770 Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn. So the previous Rebbe says the follows.
After his stroke?
It wasn't the stroke, it was the multiple sclerosis.
Yeah.
There was one in 1945 that was later. If it was a stroke or a heart attack, I'm not exactly. Okay, I'm looking here. The previous Rebbe says like this: when a person is awake, so there's a connection between the higher levels and the lowest level. The intellect, which is the highest level, is controlling everything. Even when a person throws something, which throwing is already outside of the person's hands, the person cannot control it once it's outside their hands. And it is considered already removed from the person. It's like the last leg before it leaves the person's world. It's called Maisa, but not only Maisa. In Maisa, when you do something, you can put in some structure, you can put in design that a person could see you did it. It's told in regards to the Mezrich Maggid, the Maggid of Mezrich, he would know if, in regards to a certain vessel, if the person was blind in one eye or two eyes, he would know from the vessel. So in general, a person puts their stamp, their quality that they invest in the vessel. When it comes to throwing something, you don't really see much because it's removed from the person. Everyone could throw, like throwing pebbles, he mentions here. So the previous Rebbe says, when a person is up, he does it with a certain structure, a certain direction, where it's going to be. When it comes to a person sleeping, he has no control of what's going on. Everything is concealed, the keiches are concealed, and therefore there can be, without any organized manner, there can be two opposite extremes happening at the same time. For example, he says, a person could dream an elephant going through the eye of a needle. It's interesting because I think the Talmud discusses, if it could be, but it's the Rebbe makes a notation on the bottom, look up the Talmud there. In Brachas, is the last chapter in Brachas. And this is basically in a dream. This is what a dream stands for. A dream is that a person thinks something that's false, he thinks it's true. And there's two opposite extremes in the same time. So the question is, this is all in a dream. And in sleep. Sleep in a person. But there's also sleep in the higher worlds. Not, God forbid, that the Almighty is sleeping, He's always up. Le'yonim v'le'yishon, He's always up. But the idea of sleep, when we speak about in the higher worlds, we can't describe something in the literal way we understand it here. For example, we say here in this physical world, we know there's a rooster that wakes up a person. In the higher worlds, we can't speak that there's a physical rooster there. But there is someone that is called a gever, that has the same name, that has the same idea as a rooster. Who is that? A malach. Malach Gavriel. Malach Gavriel wakes up the souls in Gan Eden. He says it's time to wake up. The Almighty wants to study with you Torah. Almighty wants to take a walk with you in Gan Eden. Stroll.
I once heard that the reason why the apple tastes like an apple because the taste spiritually has
it
that
comes
taste,
from Malchus.
Spiritual taste.
Right. Everything is nishtalshel, then it comes down to a physical apple. It all is one hemshach. Goes through the channel of the attributes. So when we speak about sleeping and above, it doesn't mean literally that the Eibishter lays down to sleep. It means to say that in the same sense that by the person, the head and the feet are equal, in the same sense when it comes to sleep above, that means that the revelation, Lamaila, in the higher worlds, does not distinguish between priorities and secondaries. Which means basically that sleep exile is all one thing. What does exile mean? The Jews are in exile. That means they are not where they're supposed to be in their promised land. That means they are not considered the priority of the whole of other amongst other nations. Why is it so? Because there is sleep taking place. Therefore, there's no distinguishing between priority and secondary. So the question is, why is there sleep in the higher worlds? So the answer is because there's also sleep in this physical world. In a spiritual sense, what does sleep mean in this physical world? When a person is living a world of dreams. What does it mean, a world of dreams? He is living two opposites in the same time. And the previous Rebbe gives a very practical explanation. He says, for example, he's in the time of prayer, he feels close to godliness, he makes a resolution that he will conduct himself after prayer in accordance with his resolution, with what his prayer guided him and with what his inspiration was in the time of prayer, and then suddenly after davening, it fades away. And he goes out into the world, he forgets completely about his resolution, about his state of nullification to the Almighty. It's over. What does this mean? He's living in a world of dreams. Here he is connecting with the Almighty, and here after that he drops everything and he runs out. And he leaves. No, he leaves, he doesn't run out. He walks out of the synagogue, but then he comes to the world and says, you know what? It's a world, it's completely a different situation. How can I apply the resolutions that I took upon myself by prayer when it comes into the world? It's contradicting. It's going to be contradicting one another. So the answer is, this is exile. This is where it stems from. It stems from that a person brings themselves into exile by living two worlds in two different phases. And one contradicts in the other. And therefore when here he is in shul, and here he comes out. And as it's taught many times, there's a famous saying, Yehudi be'alecha. There's a famous saying that says, that was given over already from years ago. Yehudi be'alecha, you're acting as a Jew in the house, but v'odam b'tzisecha, when you go out in the world, you have to act like a person. So the Rebbe says, no, that's not enough. Yehudi be'alecha, and don't change it. V'yehudi b'tzisecha. You go out in the world, you have to go with the fullest pride that you're Jewish, you're from the Jewish nation, and that you have a mission in this world, and you were given a mission by the Almighty Himself, the King of Kings, and you have the privilege to fulfill it, and you have the potential for it, and every day you get a fresh energy. And this is basically what the idea of exile is and where it starts from. It starts from when a person is in a dreamland, when a person lives when a person is experiencing two different approaches. This is basically how it is in a spiritual sense. And now we're going to discuss why a person needs to sleep.
I remember one time the Rebbe at a Bringen said, he was talking about Mashiach for years and years and years. And he said in front of like 5,000-10,000 people, there are people here in this class, in this Bringen, who thinks that I'm a dreamer, that this is all dreams, right?
1984 this was, yeah.
He says, everybody you think I'm the one that, he says, you're really the ones who are dreaming. I'm in the reality.
What about when we bench says we've been dreamers?
Kachalmim.
Kachalmim. That's what we say. That's the problem. Vishuv Hashem Hashiv Asino, Kachalmim, because the Rab Shnei Zalman of Liadi explains, and a discourse that begins with these words, that this is what exile is about. We're in a dreamland.
Wow.
So therefore, this is basically how it is in the higher worlds and how it is on a personal level in a spiritual experience. Now the question is, why does a person have to sleep? The Eibishter could have created a person in a way that he shouldn't have to sleep. He can go on and on. I mean, everything could be infinite. The same way that the sun and the moon, all these inyanim are created, and it says, "B'yem hiboram," they're as strong as the day they were created. Sun and moon. What does it mean as strong? So it says because they have the energy that the Almighty is constantly generating in them, so they are as strong as the day they were created. They're existing 5,771 years almost. So the Rebbe explains a very interesting, this was a talk in 1990. It was Shabbos Chazain. It could very well be connected with the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av, exile, sleep, descent. And the Rebbe is explaining, why does a person have to sleep? And the Rebbe says like this: when a person serves the Creator through studying Torah and fulfilling mitzvahs without interruption, as it is because of the nature of the creation, it is not obvious a renewal in his service. It does not stand out that the person is actually refreshing himself in a new way, but he's one constant, monotonous continuation that goes on all his life. And therefore the Rebbe says we can possibly say that this is the explanation why a person needs to sleep, to stress the renewal in his Aveda, that there's a renewal, there's a new beginning and a new refreshment, that although the nature is that a person there needs to be an interruption, a person has to stop, he has to sleep. The Rambam writes a person has to sleep 8 hours. In general, there are other people that come out less, other people probably more also. But so therefore, what accomplishes by sleep, what is accomplished is that when a person sleeps, a person actually begins anew. It becomes it's also a new interest, a new flavor, a new zest. Same way that we say, Veinenu me'iris kashemesh v'chayareach. The Maggid of Mezritch explains, what does it mean? Our eyes are shining like the sun and the moon. So the question is, why does it have to say the sun and the moon? The sun is stronger than the moon. So if you say already the sun, why do you have to say the moon? So the Mezritch Maggid explains, it was mentioned many times by the Rebbe, that the sun is something that goes on forever. There's no higher and lower, there's no larger or smaller. It doesn't shrink, it doesn't get larger, it's the same. It rises and it sets. The moon renews itself every month. There is elevations. The moon becomes larger in the first half. It shrinks the second half. This is the reason halachically, very interesting, halachically, this is not Kabbalah now, that there are the codifiers of the law write that it's a better luck for the Jewish nation the first half of the month to make weddings, the first half of the month when the moon is constantly becoming larger. Besides some months that a whole month is a blessed month, like the month of Elul, the month of Kislev, which is the month of Hanukkah. The month of Elul is the month which is the parable of the king in the field. The Almighty is in the field and he's available for anybody that approaches him. It's the 13 attributes of pity are revealed in the month of Elul. So therefore there are Adar is a full month, right? Adar is a full month. Tishrei is a full month. How many days are left after in between the holidays? But these are blessed months and very special months. So therefore, when it comes to the Shemesh and Yoreach, we say not only Shemesh, but Yoreach. Yoreach is something that there's always a renewed feeling, a renewed interest, a renewed excitement. A person begins another day. It's a new beginning. And he's considered created then. He's considered born then. As we mentioned earlier, Hamachazim Nishamis Levgarim Mesim. It's like bringing back the life to bodies that expire.